We're a junior team with ART that has brought, that's the team that Nico Rosberg came through with. That's the team that Lewis Hamilton won his second-tier title with. Hulkenberg as well. He's worked with a lot of drivers who've progressed to the upper echelons, and now he too makes the step up to Formula One's most famous team. Monegasque driver being pushed back into the garage. We've had a few minutes of qualifying, but not much in the way of action. Yuki Tsunoda is the only driver at the front of the field who will be happy with the lap. 132.1, I think he'll be happy. Signs on the medium tyre. 132.4. De Vries is on a 132.8, so work to do for him. Let's take another look at the incident that has affected the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, you can see this. So running board of Carlos Sainz here, but it's Charles Leclerc's car that actually had the problem. As
can you check when we go in the right part of the car? 2 curb and 27 curb, and it felt quite harsh. Understood. Understood.
Yeah, these curbs are very aggressive on the bottom of the car, and that just puts the forces, the vibrations all the way through those carbon fiber components, which will rattle parts loose. And you can see the effect that probably had on Charles Leclerc's car. Now, you can see him running a little bit wide here, and you can see those bits of carbon fiber flying off. But as we take a closer look at the slow motion of the car coming out of the corner, you can see the missing parts of those panels actually on the right front of the car. You can see where that white section comes down over the driver's right front. You can see the white line stops above the brake cooling duct, which it doesn't do on the left front. So that's why Leclerc could see some parts missing on the car. So it looks like he's got damage on both the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And that's something McLaren had suffered from as well in testing. So it looks like the bumps and the harshness of the curves here in Bahrain are really hammering some of these brand new cars.
Yeah, testing is one thing. Qualifying quite another. All eyes on Lance Stroll, who didn't take part in pre-season testing after breaking his wrist on a bike, apparently, that found a pothole. He found the floor, and via a very highly rated surgeon, racing with pins in his hand. And Fernando Alonso hoping to spring a surprise. The session is going to resume in a few minutes' time, 3 minutes' time to be exact.
It's going to be a busy track when we get going again. Basically just a 13-minute Q1 session now. The times that have been done by Tsunoda, Sainz and De Vries. Leclerc's circulated but not done a flyer because of the damage. And they'll basically be redundant now. The track's going to get better and you have to be improving. So it's going to be busy. 2 runs at a push. Everyone's going to be eager to get out, find a bit of space and hook up that first run, just because it gives you a better benchmark as well for the second one. If you're a top team, an Aston Martin, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, you'd hope that maybe you can get through on the one run. Everyone else just needs the perfect cycle for that last hurrah.
Give us an insight, gents, to the situation that those who've gone out on the soft tyres, how much is that going to affect? We saw the McLarens out there, we saw the Red Bulls out there. I think Nico Hulkenberg as well would have ventured out there on the soft tyre.
Tyres just aren't new anymore. They've done, even if you've driven around slowly, they've done, as Julian said, a heat cycle, and you've taken the shine off them. You can feel that. You can feel the improved grip from a brand new set of tyres when you go around the first corner. And as the action continues very close to the main track, we saw the Ferrari mechanics replacing that part. I'm going to go with that was finger error. I don't think that was a broken part, because they've run over a curb. You can actually see the joint line, and I think they just didn't bolt that up properly, and it's sugarled itself loose within the space of a lap.
That's the only action we've got to commentate on the go-kart track at the moment. There is quite the queue forming at the end of the pit lane, though.
We could play hide and seek in the commentary box, but it's pretty small, isn't it? So that'll be a short game.
Short game. Robert Schwartzman with us earlier on, and we are counting down to the resumption of qualifying to start the season. And as Jordan says, it's going to be a very, very busy 15 corners of the racetrack, 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles. And this essentially the beginning of qualifying proper then, after a little bit of a delay. And we will look down at the Williams at the end of the pit lane, ready to lead us out.
Tires are cooling down, so can you also just advise Joe to keep up the pace?
Copy.
arch for Charles Leclerc that delayed things. We effectively restart the qualifying hour right now with everyone leaving the pits. That debris has been cleared. They are looking to fix the Ferrari, and now out on the circuit, everyone begins their crucial preparation laps led around by Alex Albon in the Williams, who said earlier in the week Williams are still last, but we're part of the battle. So he's in a situation where the driver can make the difference, and now with all parts of bodywork attached to the car at this stage, Leclerc joins the party.
And they're not mucking around anymore at Ferrari. Soft tyres on that car now. So the first foray on the mediums, Leclerc's car braking, causing a red flag. Sainz got a lap in, but it was slow. He's actually a chunk slower than Tsunoda. He's also had his lap time deleted for good measure for track limits, so that's the first one pinging through. And Ferrari are now not wanting to jeopardise their situation in this qualifying. They don't want to put it at risk at the end, so they go for the softs and they just want to haul themselves up the order.
Yeah, that's wise, isn't it? You know, I'm sure Fred doesn't want to sort of trip at the first hurdle, very first weekend in control. So yeah, these tyres here, a nice tidy lap, a banker lap as we call it, should be more than enough to secure their place. Despite all the track evolution we're going to go through, I just don't think the cars that will be pretty much making up the back rows are going to threaten a tidy lap from a Ferrari.
It's going to be interesting. We're expecting Williams, and Williams are expecting Williams to be struggling here. We know that AlphaTauri are going to be struggling. They went straight out and wanted to crack on with a probably a 3-run Q1 program. So that could well be 4 cars, although the field's so tight, a good lap from either of them could carry themselves through. The rest of the teams, it's anyone's game for who can get through into Q2. It's so tight for the rest. McLaren have been on their back foot, but had a decent weekend so far. There's Alfa Romeo, Haas, got to be hooking up the perfect lap around this 14-corner circuit. And the final sector is so crucial. That's why everyone's trundling on this outlap on the soft. Don't want to start with the temperatures too high, or you'll be scrabbling around at the end of the flyer.
Yeah, and this is obviously the most difficult session in that you've got every car out on track. As you go through the various qualifying sessions, you get less and less until we just have that top 10 shootout. So getting track position, you know, if you get lucky, you get a car that's just a little bit quicker than you in front, not too close, of course, where you lose downforce, but you know, a distant tow can make a difference around this racetrack.
The two-time world champion, Max Verstappen, into turn 1 for his first attacking lap of qualifying this season. He looked dominant in testing. Have they found the balance so far this weekend? That is a question. He's had Fernando Alonso ahead of him in the last 2 practice sessions that we've run, one of them at this very time of day as well. 10 minutes to go, and we're about to see how he stacks up against the fastest time so far, which belongs to Yuki Tsunoda. Everyone out there for the moment. And Alonso has gone over the line to complete his first sector, and it's a 10th behind Verstappen's effort, to give you a reference. So Verstappen, the benchmark through the first 4 corners of the racetrack as he heads to the DRS zone on the back straight.
Stroll's going quickly as well, and the other Aston Martin is matching Alonso through the first sector, quicker than our benchmark from Joe now in the Alfa Romeo through the middle. So Stroll showing pace in the other Aston. Here comes Verstappen, sweeping flat out through 12. Cut the timing beam for the end of sector 2. And he's half a second up on Joe.
And they are all out there on the soft tyres. So soft tyres across the board. Alonso going very nicely in the middle part of the lap. Lance Stroll didn't know if he'd be competing in this session. He's fastest in this session on a 1:31.617. Here comes Max Verstappen. Dutch driver has completed the 15 corners of the circuit, and he's fastest of everyone so far by 0.3 of a second. But is Fernando Alonso fastest behind him? Does the hype train continue? It does, you know. Alonso goes ahead of the world champion, and Charles Leclerc is attacking as well. The driver that brought out the red flag a few moments ago looks like he's heading to the top of the timing page, but Alonso is very strong in that final sector. That is where he is very, very impressive. And can Leclerc compete at that part of the racetrack? He's bringing to the line. Where's he going to be?
His teammate as well, lining up the screens. Sainz quickest of all in the first sector as Leclerc takes the top spot for now. And this is going to be 8 minutes of frantic action to make sure that as that track evolves. And what sort of track time of evolution do you think we're looking at here, Julian?
For a pole time?
No, the track evolution as it counts down the next 8 minutes. You know, the signs there with 30.9. Where do we think we can get to? in this session?
Well, it depends how much the top guys want to go back out and go again, because they might think they're safe with that, although the whole field is a lot closer now. So you've only got a second down to Albon. You're looking at, you can find easily a second with the second run here as the temperatures cool. You're getting more dialed in the cockpit as well. So it's very difficult to think you're safe. And look at Lewis Hamilton, for example, 7th place. Someone's just had another lap time deleted. I think that was Lance Stroll.
It was.
And there's only half a second from Hamilton to the slowest car, which is Nick de Vries. He's no way safe in that position.
You're going to have to run again. Jolyon Palmer and David Coulthard with us for the opening qualifying session of the year. Zach Brown looking on as the times are being posted on the board. Lando Norris, who scored in 4 of the last 5 Bahrain races that he's had here, in 17th, ahead of his teammate, but not the picture that McLaren wanted to see. 7 minutes and 20 seconds to go. George Russell has entered the picture from nowhere, so we are expecting things to move forward, or Mercedes have found an unexpected answer.
And what about this? Red Bull 5th and 6th. Everyone's favourite in the paddock.
We keep ticking off sessions and going, well, Red Bull will turn it up. They'll arrive. Everyone's expecting it to happen. But 5th and 6th at the moment with another run to come. And it's Carlos Sainz, who's not been happy in any way with the balance that he's had in the car so far this weekend, who tops the times. Formula One in 2023, you're going to have to work for it to hit the front.
Absolutely. Or are Red Bull just working to a nice Hollywood script? Of course they aren't.
Well, Q2 is often the time where the top teams would unleash. We've seen it a few times before. Q1 is about getting through in the top 15. They've got a second in hand to Nico Hülkenberg in 16th. So they're not under any pressure. Maybe they're holding it back. Maybe we can still say that they're going to unleash at some point. But they're not ahead of Ferrari or Mercedes anymore. McLaren had a bit of a turgid time there. 17th and 18th for Norris and Piastri. 1 run to go for them, and that's big trouble.
Yeah, that is more pressure on Piastri than Norris. You've got to say Norris, very experienced in Formula One now, pretty handy over 1 lap. But Piastri might well look at the timing screens and go, oh, 1 lap to make sure that I don't fall at the first hurdle.
At the same time, he's within a 10th of Norris. So that in itself is very good. Comparing to your teammate, always a key metric.
This is going to be turn 13 and Lance Stroll's time being deleted that we go on board for.
Tight, but he's over that white line. Turn 4 has typically been the track limits corner, but Stroll's left himself in trouble here. That lap time that he did should have left him in 8th place, just behind Lewis Hamilton, looking fairly safe. The Aston Martin we know is rapid. Fernando's up in 4th still. And Stroll now is plumb last. No time on the board. He's going to have to go back out, and he's going to have to deliver a clean, no track limits violation lap.
So that's the question for him, and puts pressure on a driver who has struggled a little bit. 5 minutes to go. Sainz, Russell, Leclerc, Alonso, Verstappen is not the top 5 that we expected. Everyone resetting, everyone will be speaking to their engineers. And this is going to be very, very interesting to see which way it goes. Hülkenberg, a star of 1 lap pace yesterday, in the drop zone at the moment.
Yeah, very surprising that. He was 5th quickest yesterday in the representative session of FP2. This time of day, these temperatures, flying. And he's not hooked up that one. It's only 1 lap though, and suddenly you've got the order, and it matters for the first time this year. This is going to be your benchmark for the season. And Hülkenberg, hero yesterday, he's got to dig out a flying lap right at the end. Pressure on him.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Because where do Grand Prix drivers win races? Well, they win them on Sunday with the checkered flag. Where do you sort of define your reputation and your career? It's over 90 seconds, a qualifying lap.
And it's morale for the season as well. The first qualifying session, it'll be 1-0 to your teammate if you're behind, particularly if you're out in Q1. You don't want to be hopping out the car in 4 minutes' time, and that's the end of your session. You want to keep going, finding more time and hustling on.
Yeah, the walk of shame down the pit lane to be weighed. Miserable. Else is still qualifying, yeah. Oh, I had counselling to help me with that.
Okay, final runs. We are in the preparation zone for them. We're going to lose 5 drivers at the moment. Hulkenberg, Norris, Piastri. McLaren lost Daniel Ricciardo in session 1 year ago. They did not want to be in this place again. They're already talking about Baku and the updates that they can bring to that car. Such is the performance deficit that they've had. They've said they've missed objectives, but Alonso in the fight as well. Everyone's going to have to take a step forward here. Plenty looking over their shoulder. You're going to have to take a step forward. Hamilton downwards, I think, as the track is going to be in the best condition that we've seen so far. And Aston Martin are winning fans left, right, and centre this weekend. There's 3 more.
They're going to be shipping some merch, aren't they?
They really are.
I'm sure we're going to be seeing some green around the circuits this year. Hamilton leaves the pits just now. So does Russell and Leclerc. So Sainz stays in with the 2 Red Bulls. It seems like they think they've done enough. No, Verstappen goes out as well. And we're going to see the final flourish now of Q1. The times are going to tumble. You can never rest on your laurels at this stage.
No. 1 lap to make your day, or as you say, have that uncomfortable walk to watching the rest of this qualifying session. So let's see if anyone's lining up. Everyone's going to have more than enough time to get themselves nicely positioned to start the lap. First person to do so will be Alex Albon in the Williams. Currently in, but once we see some activity, we'd expect the McLarens to be able to get in front of him. Stroll, of course, so that's going to push him down.
2-minute warning has sounded. Alex Albon attacking. He's found some pace, trying to get through into the second part of qualifying. The Thai driver, who grew up in London, about to attack this racetrack, and he's going to turn number 4. 90 seconds remain. It's going to be the last opportunity. Dances to the very edge of track limits through turn 4. That is going to be tight.
They'll be looking at that one. It was super tight there for Albon over the white line at turn 4. Millimetre on the edge, I think. But he's done a personal best through there anyway. So for now, he can carry on into the tricky braking zone. Turn 9 into 10 through the left-hander. You've got to not lock up that left front to sail on. And he's negotiated it well. Squeezes on the throttle and he can open the DRS.
That car looks pretty hooked up, doesn't it? It's dancing around nicely. It doesn't seem to have the outright pace of some of the others around them, but let's just see how this unfolds. No mistakes on the lap, which is very easy on this track to get sucked in on some of these big stops. As the downforce comes off, you see an under rotation.
We're looking at Alex Albon on his way to completing the lap. We're looking at Lance Stroll under big pressure here, carrying that injury. As Albon picks his way through the traffic, they're queuing up in the final sector. Stroll is improving first sector of the lap, but this is the only chance he's going to get. He's only 2.5 tenths of a second behind Sainz. Everyone, though, is going to be taking a step forward. Alex Albon showing that with the 6th fastest time.
And there's your track evolution. It's huge around here. Nick De Vries has not done a great first sector. So De Vries now shuffled down to 14th. Sonoda jumps up in the other AlphaTauri, and he is not improving at all right now, Nick De Vries. So he's under big pressure.
Up to 5th goes Stroll, needed the lap and delivered with the fastest final sector of anyone out there. The McLarens are under pressure. Gasly in the Alpine is in the drop zone at the moment, and the driver at risk has completed his lap. That's why the checkered flag logo is there. Nick De Vries is looking over his shoulder. Zhou Guanyu has improved up to 11th place. Norris attacking, and Piastri's hanging on to it, Lando Norris, through the 14th corner around this racetrack. One for Payakar to go over the line and up to 13th. Not the improvement that he would ideally want. Gasly in the drop zone's about to cross the line right now, but he only goes to 15th. A driver who's once qualified 5th around here before. And here is the rookie driver, Oscar Piastri, in his first Formula One qualifying session. Has 2 corners to go around the racetrack. Can he get through like Norris has done as well? Gasly is the driver at risk. Magnussen, De Vries, and Sargent currently heading out in the first. Piastri can't get there. He's only 17th. He returns with a strong lap under pressure. We know Piastri's going out. We know De Vries is going out. Can Logan Sargent hustle his way through and make the second part of qualifying? The answer to the question is coming your way, and he gets up to 16th.
Exactly the same time as Lando Norris, to the 1,000th. So unlucky for Logan Sargent. Brilliant job from him to be within 2 tenths of Albon, who's in the top 10. Williams will be chuffed with that.
They will be delighted. Albon started this weekend saying we're the slowest. Well, we've had a qualifying session, we've had Q1, and that's not the case. Norris gets through because he sets the time first. Great effort on debut from Logan Sargent, who goes out along with Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, Oscar Piastri, and Nick de Vries.
And the whole field is separated by 1.1 seconds.
What?
That's impressive. Never seen that. Have you seen that?
I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember it.
No,
I can't
Not
remember
in Formula One.
Not in Formula One.
We should mention that the big players didn't go back out for a second run there, so it bunched up a little bit. That was Albon, then it was right on the white line.
Spoil a great stat by giving us reality.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see it the whole way through. It is
Thank
so
you.
much.
I believe.
tighter.
Positive DC to start the year.
9/10 within 18 cars, within 9/10, and that's how close it was. The 1,000 separates Norris and Sargent.
What must Pierre Gasly be thinking?
Right, and everyone, welcome to the channel. We're just between sessions now. That was Q1 is complete. Q1 is complete. Those that drop out, as you can see from the timing screen. In fact, let me just move myself out the way just a fraction. There we go. Yeah, it's a bit of a funny session because we're seeing a lot of different things to what we perhaps expected that we would see. For example, the Ferraris, who, in my opinion, look like they might sort of be the third best team after practice, behind the Aston Martins and the Red Bulls, is currently sat there first and third. Everyone's pre-season favourites, the Red Bulls, are down in currently 7th and 10th. Obviously, a long way to go. Still 2 qualifying sessions. This is where things start to heat up now because engine modes start cranking up. The evolution of the track, rubber down on the track, etc. So it's going to start getting interesting now from this point onwards. But it's a very interesting session. And what you'll see, by the way, you might notice that for every team has got no team, in fact, has got both drivers out in Q1. So you've got McLaren's 1 driver through, 1 out. The Hasses, look at Haas. 6th place for Hulkenberg, but 17th for Magnussen. Look at Williams. You got Sargent in 16th, but you got Albon in 9th, and so on. So do you know what I mean? So it's a very strange qualifying. It's not quite a qualifying session I've ever really witnessed quite like this. 1.1 seconds between the whole field. Granted, the very fastest cars out there didn't necessarily push a second lap, but still, it shows that it's going to be an interesting next couple of sessions. Obviously, the ones we're looking out for, can Red Bull start to bounce back? Have they just really put a very low effort into that first qualifying? Or is it just been that they've shown their cards and everyone else hadn't? So we're just waiting now for qualifying 2 to come up. We've got audio, or we've got commentary, running commentary for Formula1.com. We've got live telemetry, etc. So please stay tuned for that. If you are new to the channel, please feel free to smash that like button and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And we'll obviously be live for tomorrow's race as well. And we'll be live after the race on Sunday for a post-race analysis as well. So I really appreciate all your support. We've got quite a few people. We're live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube. We're also live on Twitter, funny enough, as well. So you can follow us on either of those channels. Let's get back to the racing. There is going to be live commentary, and I'll be back after Q2 before Q3.
The other way around to what we saw last year, and that's taken me a little bit by surprise. But also on the apex speeds, the Ferrari does look ever so slightly better than the Red Bull. Key point though, the Red Bull tyres were not the freshest and newest on the car. Verstappen put back on the set of tyres that he did that 1 lap on when the red flag came out, so that might have taken the edge ever so slightly off the Red Bull pace. So that is a bit of an issue for them to address. Looking at Mercedes, they do seem to have found some genuine pace with George Russell again, they seem to have addressed their straight line speed deficit we saw all the way through last season. Now, they weren't able to make any major power unit changes. They just made software changes. So very effective software department over at Brixworth in Northamptonshire, guys.
Thank you very much, Sam Collins. Always good to get Sam's opinion on what we're seeing out on track and to get his insight. Fantastic to have your company for the opening qualifying session of the season. Maybe predictable that our rookie drivers would go out in the first part, but you've got to say Logan Sargent will be pleased to be ahead of Piastri and De Vries. De Vries, 28 years old, Formula 2 champion, Formula E champion, and finds himself the last of the rookies.
Cardinal sin from De Vries, not improving on the final lap. And that's what it was always going to be. You've got to hook it all up. He was looking okay on the run before, but the time was just tumble. And in the end, the gap was 7/10 De Vries to Sonoda, who really did put it all together. I'm going to take my hat off to Nico Hulkenberg. We were just saying he was under pressure. He was in the drop zone, had to deliver. And he didn't only deliver, he smashed it all the way up to P6, dropping K-Mag out in Q1. Really, really good job. And again, big gap between them. I don't think Magnussen particularly hooked that one up either.
Yeah, I think the time reflects the track evolution, but nonetheless, his experience, I think, kept a calm head when it really mattered.
So Mercedes looked better in that first part of qualifying. Big moments for Alex Albon, who only reached Q3 once last year at Spa. So he's got a chance to fight again, certainly on the evidence of what we saw before. Everyone else trying to respond, but encouraging stuff for Williams, who really weren't expecting it to be in this case. Oscar Piastri, mentored by our good friend Mark Webber, who finds himself on the big screen and getting a cheer as a result, but the body language tells you all you need to know. That's not the debut he was expecting or wanting. And Logan Sargent, who will start a couple of places ahead of him on the grid. 4th place in the Formula 2 Championship last year. The American driver, P16. Identical time, set a couple of seconds after Lando Norris had notched a 1:31.652.
And after all the shake-up in it, in Q1, McLaren had the slowest car.
Yeah.
They were the only team to almost lose 2 cars there, actually. Norris scraped through by the 1,000th over Sargent. Then you had one Williams, one Haas, the other McLaren, and AlphaTauri and an Alpine. There's no tail end team from what we've seen right now. It's McLaren who managed to just scrape their second car through.
So Fernando Alonso making his Aston Martin debut tomorrow. What position will he be in? He made his debut 22 years ago today, back in 2001 for Minardi. And he is replacing a driver who's 7 years younger. It shows you how unusual it was for Alonso to take that seat and start the Formula One silly season in the summer break. Seems a very long time ago. Esteban Ocon, he's got a new teammate. He's going through into the next part of qualifying. His new teammate isn't. And that will be a boost for him because there's going to be quite the fight for supremacy down there. Felipe Drugovich would have hoped to be in the car. Reserve driver, reigning Formula 2 champion. A man putting a brave face on it, let's be honest, because that was his golden opportunity. But you have to say Lance Stroll had one chance there, carrying the injury after what looked like a brutal practice day yesterday, delivered when he needed to.
Yeah, I guess Drugovich, having put the stick in the spokes of Lance's bicycle, doesn't want to trip him up in the corridor too early. His strategy to get himself straight into a Formula 1 car hasn't quite worked this time.
File that under jokes DC can make, and we can't. Ferrari are waiting to unleash their cars. Soft rubber, as you would expect once again. And this is going to be really fascinating. If it was tight before, it is going to be ridiculous now.
Were they scrubbed tyres, it looked like to me, on the Ferrari?
Yeah, they were with the Ferrari. Same for the Aston Martin of Stroll, who had to go back out at the end on the new set to get through. New tyres on the Red Bulls.
This, I think, will be quite telling, because even if Red Bull are holding back a little bit, and how can they do that? Well, the drivers can just not quite push 100%, which is quite tricky to do if you don't get the car rotated. If you're holding back a bit, they could hold back on engine mode. But if that was just the sort of the time at which they ran on track and track evolution, I would imagine both Max and Checo would want to have a little bit of a sniff in this session here. just to settle their mind. You know, are we really still where we think we are, or where we want to be, right at the front, or are we actually really up against it?
Sandbagging by the drivers not pushing is a really hard thing to do when you get to qualifying, because you can't just turn it on and find it all straight away. It's usually a bit of engine mode. Why would they run a bit more fuel right now? That just seems an unnecessary risk. So it would just be, have they got more grunt now? Can they unleash a little bit more on the power unit? And that's what we'll see in this session. We're still waiting for it, aren't we? We're still waiting for it, but maybe it won't happen.
The great thing about that word grunt is, you know, that's a kind of British word, isn't it? But when we have our foreign national race drivers also adopt that word. I need more grunt.
That is the sound of Lance Stroll roaring across the line. We're on board with the Canadian driver as he begins another push lap. And we are awaiting everyone out there on the circuit, apart from Alex Albon at the moment, driver who made it through, but it hasn't left the pits. Stroll fighting it as he climbs the hill, makes his way to turn 4.
The amount of torque these hybrid engines have is quite incredible. That's why you see them in this era short shifting to try and control the RPM, control the amount of torque. And that's simply because instead of relying on the engine to come on cam, you've got a big dose of electrical energy. That's where you can accelerate the mass nice and early. So the drivers are very conscious of obviously trying to get as much traction as possible and just staying below the rear slip angle so you don't put those rear tire temperatures through the roof.
Wonderful sound of Lance Stroll roaring past our camera position down there into turn 11, one of the best corners on the racetrack. He's done a fine first sector, but Alonso is even faster still as they all attack at the moment to try and give themselves a foundation to push on in Q2. Stroll, who has had this dwindling return stats in Formula One, 75 points in 2020, 34 points in 2021, just 18 in 2022, with a personal best of 6th place in the Singapore Grand Prix. Weekend, his time on the board, 32.3. Now, this will give us an idea of how close it is really going to be. We go driver's eye view into the final corner.
Not really what we see, is it?
It's the best we've got. It's the best we've got. But you can see the reflections now from the lights as well coming through the visor, tinted visor for most. I think Stroll had quite a clear one. But yeah, thankfully they see a little bit better than this as they're coming through. Alonso to the top.
Alonso to the top by a fine margin as well. He's 8/10 faster than anyone else's time out there for the moment. Yet to see the big hitters out there with him as well. Alonso, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Norris, Joe and Stroll, the top 6. Here's George Russell over the line to go faster than Fernando Alonso. Here's Lewis Hamilton to go faster than his teammate and bring out a cheer from the crowd. But what can the Ferraris do? Verstappen is going very quickly in the first 2 sectors of the lap. We thought this would be representative. Leclerc is only in 4th. And is this going to be the full picture? Is this the true pace? Max Verstappen, 28.9 in the first sector, 38.9 in the second, and he is 0.4 of a second ahead of Lewis Hamilton in second place. Let's see what Sergio Perez can do. He'll make it a Red Bull 1-2 with 7 minutes to go on the clock. It's Verstappen ahead of Perez by 2.5 of a second.
It will be interesting to see what the track evolution will probably slow down a little bit now as we get into this phase of qualifying. But we should remind ourselves those Ferraris were on at least a lap of this racetrack. Those tires were not brand new.
I think the rest of the top 5 were on new tyres. Ferraris weren't. Stroll in the Aston Martin definitely wasn't. That's why he's down in 12th. And we're waiting for Alex Albon to get out of the garage in Q2.
Get over the shock of getting through to Q2, I think.
Yeah, he's just got out the pits now. Alex Albon. So he's running in the gap.
He's got a chance of making Q3 with the way that he had the pace in Q1. I don't think he turned up this week saying, no, we're at the back, guys. I've never heard a driver be so downbeat after testing when everyone else was talking Williams up.
Yes.
And suddenly he's got a shot at an outside shot at Q3. He's going to go for it in this window. 1 set of tyres for him, it looks like, in this part of qualifying, and he'll give it now. Red Bull turned it up then. That was new tyres. Surely that was a little bit of the width turned up. They're not out of reach. 1-2, so it looks pretty for them. But Perez is only a 10th.5 up on Hamilton. We don't know what Ferrari can do yet either. They're not up the road.
No. It's going to be a shootout. It's absolutely going to be the case. Hamilton, all the doom and gloom going into the weekend of free practice. Right now, he's got to be feeling a little bit charged. Going, okay, well, look, we're in the hunt here.
Yeah, something to work with.
Exactly. I mean, he ended yesterday saying, I think we've got to change the whole car concept. We're nowhere near them.
Abandon the whole thing.
Fast forward 24 hours, and he's within a 10th.5 of one of the Red Bulls. He's within 4/10 of Verstappen, who's been hooked up all the time he's been driving this car. Maybe a little less so yesterday, finding a bit of balance, but now he's getting that gap to Perez again.
So pushing that car down to the scales, I think.
Did he miss the way bridge?
Did he go through a red light? Which, who's watching to make sure that they haven't done something to the car, or are they just wanting to sanity check their own weight of car?
No, I'm sure he's gone through the red light, and then you're allowed to quickly get pushed back and then and get on the scales. The problem is for Stroll, there's only 5 minutes left of this, and he's in the drop zone. So even the mechanics are now swarming around it. Push it down to the weighbridge, then hop it on. Then you've got to get back, put on the new tyres. It's going to get really stressful.
Yeah, they need a pit stop, don't they, rather than pushing it back into the pit lane.
Yeah, they used to be very, very strict on missing the weighbridge. Even if you just went past it, you were in trouble. They're slightly more lenient now. Checking the random check is to make sure that no one is running underweight at any point of the weekend, as Albon puts all four wheels over the white line on his attempt in the gap, and he knows it.
There goes Albon's chance of anything other than 15th now, because he hasn't done a lap time in Q2, unless somehow he's got fuel for another flyer in there, then he can go again. A little bit of weaving as he came back on the circuit. Maybe that was just to scrub off the sand that we would have picked up on the tyres as he cut through turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, very dusty offline. You do a pretty good job of sucking up all that sand and dust from the actual tarmac, but as we look out the comm box, I'm looking at those poor Aston mechanics that are sprinting down the pit lane back to the garage. They'll be exhausted.
This is the moment on board with Alexander Albon, driver who made Q3 just once last season.
Yeah, he turned in way too late there. Just didn't get inside the groove. And there was only one way that car was going, and it's understeer.
Yeah, he had so much understeer, carrying in a little bit too much. He missed the apex by a little bit, was always pushing on there. And you'll have known it from the cockpit. When you're missing the braking, you know you're heading to the runoff area. We're hearing Lance Stroll is only just now being pushed down towards the garage. In fact, I can see him still outside. Now he's being wheeled back into the garage. There's 3 minutes, 18 seconds to go. They've got to change the tyres, put a bit of fuel in it. It's going to be nip and tuck.
Talk about pressure.
Real pressure now. And it's been enough pressure on Lance Stroll across the entire weekend. Man from Montreal.
He's probably put that pressure on himself. If you've gone through the red light, you've got to be looking out for it at the weighbridge. The FIA down there, they'll stop cars at random, and he must have seen it, but it's too late, so he radios the team, and then they push him down, and that's cost him an extra minute or two.
Okay, we're inside the crucial final run phase of the opening Grand Prix of the year. This is Q2. We've seen a demonstration from Red Bull of what looks like their real pace. Now, with a new set of tyres for all of their competitors who can fight back and maybe close down that gap. For Lance Stroll, Zhou Guanyu, Ocon, Tsunoda, nothing for Albon. And so it's 4 drivers trying to escape. Lando Norris, given he made it through out of Q1 by setting his time before Logan Sargent, he will be pleased to have got himself into what is currently 10th place as he tries to haul that McLaren into contention as the team based in Woking in the UK tried to adapt to the situation that they face. 2-minute warning, cars out on their preparation laps, and there's some team battles going on. Bottas currently going through, Zhou currently going out, Alonso currently going through, Stroll on the back foot, understandably, and a lot of talk at the start of the year about, it's certainly in testing, about Alpine. And Alpine are, okay, they're going to turn it up. We're going to wait and see. So far, that pace has not materialized. It's a team that weren't talking about fighting the midfield. They were talking about escaping the midfield. They're trying not to go out in Q2, having lost one car in Q1.
Yeah, I never quite understand the whole sandbagging thing. You know, you've got to test your car to the best of your ability in all conditions, full tanks, low fuel, you know, change, variation of setups. That's the whole point of that extensive 3-day testing shared with your teammates.
Engineers love it though, don't they? They never let you take the fuel out and give it a go. I don't understand it either. There's no logic to it. Everyone's looking at everyone all the time anyway. You can't really conceal your secrets in today's Formula One.
I agree. Like, what the best example of that from my career was in Monaco. They'd always wanted to run heavy tanks at the Thursday, as it was at that time. Well, my theory was, let me go as quickly as possible, because that's where the lap time's going to be come Saturday anyway. So, anyway. Meanwhile, back in Bahrain,
I enjoyed it as a tangent, and it means that we're going to get a flurry of laps over the line. Everyone is improving in Sector 1 who's done a Sector 1. So you can see how much Ocon is gaining on Norris. It means that Norris is going to have to respond. Good first sector as well for Zhou Guanyu, and it is going to be another big step forward. You've got to deliver under pressure. Ocon is going to go over the line. He's going to break into the top 10. Whereabouts is it going to be? Fourth shows you how much there is to gain out there.
Watch out for Hulkenberg. He's majestic on this lap. He goes
Third. Fantastic from Hulkenberg. Once again, proving electric over one lap pace. Zhou Guanyu gets himself into the top 10. That puts him at risk still, though, because he's in 9th place. Bottas and Norris are out at the moment. The driver at risk is Charles Leclerc. The driver in the drop zone at the moment is Charles Leclerc, thanks to the improvement of Valtteri Bottas, a 2-time pole position winner around this circuit. Alonso goes into 2nd position. We ride on board with Lando Norris, who has meters to go, and he's up to 8th place. Another Lando Norris special to give himself a chance of Q3. Charles Leclerc was under pressure. Now he's fastest, delivering when he needed to. The Red Bulls are in the pit lane. Sainz is up to 3rd. It's Bottas into the drop zone with his Alfa Romeo teammate of Zhou Guanyu. Yuki Tsunoda will not make it. Alex Albon did not have the lap on the one push lap, and so it all comes down to Lance Stroll. He is round the final corner. It's not been ideal. Hamilton improves up to 4th. Can Lance Stroll make it and knock out Lando Norris? The answer is yes, he can, with the last lap in Q2. And he delivers what will be the most satisfying moment of his season, because that has been a real roller coaster in the last week, and that will be enormously pleasing to the Canadian driver and Aston Martin, who have put 2 cars into Q3, and Norris just falls short. The fact he was able to drag it to 11th, testament to his skill, because that car is not where the team wanted to be. Alfa Romeo, bright start last year, out in Q2 along with Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon.
Still, the track evolution was big, wasn't it?
It
You
was
had to put
enormous.
it together. The times tumble ever further. Norris so close to putting that McLaren into Q3, which, as it was the slowest car in Q1, would have been a brilliant effort. They can score points from there. I think Alfa Romeo, 12th and 13th, maybe a little bit disappointing.
he'll be very happy. As Günther Steiner pulled Hulkenberg out of, as you mentioned earlier, he pretty much was retired.
Right, that's the end then of Q2. The end of Q2. So we're finally ready now for Q3. And Leclerc is the fastest man. Now, just to give a rough idea on last season's timings. Last year, the best lap, the quickest lap, the pole lap was by Charles Leclerc with a 1:30.5. So this year, so far, they're at 1:30.2. So far, they're 3 tenths quicker than what they were. What he was last year. But again, I expect that time to fall because I think I'd be surprised if the engine modes are at max. They'll be at max for the last lap or their last qualifying lap coming next. So we may break under the 130s potentially. That remains to be seen. Other things to make note. Norris just failing in that troubled McLaren, it has to be said, a difficult McLaren, an underwhelming McLaren by all means, and finishing in 11th, although it's a good effort on his part. Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, the Alphas, 12th and 13th. Tsunoda, 14th, and the Alpha Tauri, who are perhaps doing a bit better than a lot of people thought. I think a lot of people thought they might be right at the back. And Alex Albon, who had the one lap that the time was deleted because he had all 4 wheels off the track, and as we know, that it's something they've been tightening down quite a lot of. So he's still got Q3 coming up. It's all to play for, all to race for. I mean, even a Mercedes, though, to be fair, Russell and Hamilton only a couple of attempts off. I think it's going to be between Leclerc and Verstappen. In reality, I think that's what it's going to be between them two. But as we've seen, Alonso actually had a lap time deleted as well, presumably for track infringement. So very, very tight. Alonso, don't write him off. For some reason, the Aston Martins look mighty as well this season. Look absolutely mighty. And I think if as long, and this is from a racing perspective, from a neutral Formula One fan, I hope to God Red Bull aren't as quick and as far in front as everyone thought. Because if they're not, you've got 2, 3, 4 teams potentially. The Red Bulls, the Mercedes, the Ferraris from last season as well, and then throw in the Aston Martins instead. And what a season we could have. The only thing with Bahrain, it doesn't really show all the car's characteristics. So again, what we see here could actually be different in a couple of weeks' time when we go to Saudi Arabia, which is a much longer, faster, straight line speed circuit. So we'll have to see. Right, let's get back to the racing. Only a few minutes now until Q3, and let's see who can take pole. And I'll be back with you after that.
About no more hiding, guys.
Thank you very much, Sam Collins. Fantastic facility for motor racing. First racing here in Formula One back in 2004. The last time Red Bull won around this circuit was Sebastian Vettel. That's the last time that we ran the Grand Prix in the day. Since then, they installed the floodlights, and we've had some of the best modern races around this circuit. So many dramatic moments, and I'm so pleased that we are going to get more of them, because whoever takes pole position today really going to have to earn it. The forecasts of doom, the forecasts of Red Bull in another league so far have not come true. Just looking at what we've seen across the board, Valtteri Bottas had a run here of always qualifying in the top 6. That has now come to an end with that exit. Always good pace around here, so work to do for the Alfa Romeo team. And there was only 300ths of a second between the pair of Alfa drivers. So we look ahead to the top 10 shootout. Yeah. Fernando Alonso looking for his first pole position. Would be remarkable given what we've seen. But he's looking for his first pole position since 2012. He hasn't won a Grand Prix since 2013. Charles Leclerc on pole here last year. Max Verstappen's never won a season opener. George Russell had an amazing debut here for Mercedes, was on the front row on the outer loop. And Lewis Hamilton, as you would expect with Lewis Hamilton, a multiple winner, 5 times a winner around the circuit.
And running the theme of how close it's all been, Alonso was 6th in that Q2 session, a 10th off Verstappen in 2nd, and only a quarter of a second off Leclerc, who at the end just went to the top. So that's just a little lock-up somewhere, a small mistake, and you can easily find a couple of tenths if you didn't completely hook it up in Q2.
Gust of wind at the wrong time, you can lose a couple of tenths. So you're really in it.
Alonso there, staring into the cockpit of his new team. Charles Leclerc looking for his 3rd pole position around this circuit. Only one race in the last 50 years has seen a driver as old as Fernando Alonso take pole. That was Mario Andretti when he was super subbing for Ferrari in 1982. Thanks to the stat man for that one. Sean Kelly providing us with the information. We have a green light at the end of the pit lane, and we have a nervous wait though. See the drivers out on track, which include the returning Nico Hülkenberg, a driver with 1 pole position in his career. Strangely, the same circuit as his teammate, who departed the session in Q1. But it is worth underlining that Haas are very happy with their 1-lap pace. They're not looking forward to Sunday as much.
Well, you'd rather start towards the front and work your way back than start at the back and hope you could work your way forward.
And the one-lap pace as well. We saw Albin and the Williams sometimes getting points, just getting your elbows out in defence. If he can bury himself quite well into this top 10, which maybe he can with the pace that he's got, you can get racing. They've got a decent top speed. They can get defending a little bit as well. And we don't honestly know the long-run pace of a lot of their rivals either. We think the Aston Martins are quick, but we think the Aston Martins pretty quick over one lap as well.
It's all about giving yourself a foundation in Q3. You don't want to make a mistake and find yourself on the back foot, having to attack late on. Robert Schwartzman giving us a wave, the reserve driver, as he sees. And then Sainz leave the garage. Charles Leclerc last night did not expect to be able to fight for this pole position, and there is a fight for the pole position. It involves Red Bull, it involves Ferrari, it involves Mercedes, and it involves Fernando Alonso. What a fantastic prospect as we begin the outlaps for run 1 of 2 in Q3. It's going to be great to see who is able to seize the moment.
Yeah, this is the racing driver's Scooby-Doo moment, isn't it? You know, this is as good as it's going to get. You're a few minutes away from maximum track evolution. You're going to have all bells and whistles, everything coming from the engine, and Enzo's son there looking on. Can he dream? That was only a year ago, beginning of the season, they started pole position here, so it'll be pretty handy on this racetrack.
Leclerc's got such a track record in Q3 as well. The most pole positions last season, even if he was nowhere near the title, the qualifying form was there. It's all about putting the corners together, not making any mistakes across the 14 of them, 15 of them, if you include the final sort of kink to the line. You've got to put it together, and that's where you're going to see probably the difference between, at this stage, pole and maybe sort of 5th or 6th is how close it looks.
Max Verstappen's stats from last year at the bottom of the screen. 15 wins, 17 podiums. He had the fastest laps, but right now he's just thinking about beating his rivals in Q3. 7 times last year, he was on pole position in Formula One. He's looking to take a step forward past everyone here. It's not been the domination that many expected, but he's got a clear racetrack in front of him. He'll be the first one to set a lap time. DRS wide open as the 2-time world champion heads down to turn number 1, looking to confirm his status as title favorite. There are very few people in the paddock you can find who think that he's not going to be a 3-time Formula One world champion by the end, but it's about delivering under pressure with the Q3 time ticking down. His teammate out there as well, Leclerc also on track. The times that we will get across the line will be Verstappen first, then Perez, then Leclerc, then Sainz out there. And Verstappen immediately on the attack, down, on board at turn 8.
Fastest first sector we've seen so far today from Verstappen. That's where there was a little bit of a deficit to Ferrari before, and he's quicker than Leclerc, and he's quicker than Perez, to the tune of 1/10 in the first sector.
And what really stands out, he's hit all the apexes. There's not been a little bit wide at turn 1, a little bit wide, you know, getting into some of those tighter, slower corners. He looks really hooked up.
Is he saving the best till last? He has been masterful through this sector, all the way through testing, all the way through practice. Can he be all the way through qualifying? It certainly looks spectacular from our heli shot now, and he's not got much left to do. Absolutely compliant, exactly what he wants the car to do through turn 13, which is always such a good barometer of car performance around Bahrain International. Charles Leclerc, though, fastest middle sector of anyone so far. It's a contest, and the time to beat across the line for Max Verstappen is a 1:29.8. Immediately up against it is his teammate Sergio Perez, who can't get close. He's 0.2 of a second away. But what about Charles Leclerc on pole here last year, and he's second at the moment. He's 1/10 of a second away. It is a fight for pole. Sainz, is he in that battle? Let's find out. He goes in P4, 4/10 of a second away, and we'll watch the Aston Martin over the line as well. Lance Stroll is 5th.
5 drivers have done a time. There goes Fernando Alonso then on his new set of tyres. He's waited and he saved a set of tyres, as have the Mercedes. So they will just do one run in this, save a set for tomorrow. And it's close out front. Verstappen, 1/10 ahead of Leclerc. Perez not out of it either. couple of tenths back. Sainz a little further adrift, and he's looked generally a little bit further adrift of Leclerc so far this weekend.
Leclerc taking his first pole position in Formula One in 2019. He led the field this time last year. It was Verstappen in 2021. Verstappen, who's never won the season opener, came very close in 2021 though. It's a different program for Mercedes. 1/10 of a second between Verstappen and Leclerc, both of them trying to add to considerable pole position records. This is on board with Carlos Sainz. Verstappen is chasing pole position 21, Leclerc pole position 19.
Oh, looked a little bit twitchy on the turn in there towards turn 6 and twitchy on the exit as well. So that'll be where Sainz lost a bit of time in the middle sector. He started qualifying by getting a bit wide out of there, and his first run of Q3 is like for like. He's out there on the second set of rumble strips, caused a bit of oversteer, and then it's really tricky to get your braking for the tricky turn 8 afterwards. So Sainz a little bit of drift. There's more in the tank for him if he hooks it up.
The man who started with Minardi in Formula One, now racing for Aston Martin. The first team he has joined since Minardi that don't have that famous championship pedigree. He was racing with Renault. They had championship pedigree at that Enstone team. Obviously Ferrari and McLaren, the two most successful Formula One teams in history. And it's been a lot of talk about this man and what he could do with the Aston Martin. He is chasing his first pole position since Germany in 2012. Can we see some Fernando Alonso magic to get involved in the battle for pole?
Here we go. One shot only for Fernando in Q3. He's been good on the brakes all the time in the Aston Martin. You've got to hook it to the right and fling it through the left-hander at turn 2. Squeeze on the power and accelerate now up to turn 4. Where it's another big stamp on the brakes, and we'll get a first second time in comparison to Verstappen. He's really wide on the entry, opening up the corner. He's right on the limit of track limits on the exit as well, but he's good, and he's 10th down on Verstappen.
He's not too far away. Verstappen devastating in that middle sector, but remember, it was Charles Leclerc who was the fastest through there. Alonso has been on the front row in Formula One 38 times before.
And that Alonso first sector is the same as Perez and the same as Leclerc. Just Verstappen had the march on the others in that part of the lap. Alonso's final sector has been good as well, so can he bring this back towards Verstappen's pace?
We're all leaning closer to the screen in the commentary box because Fernando Alonso is in the hunt. Such a talented driver. Sometimes he didn't time his career moves the way he wanted. Has he got this one right? Has he got an opportunity to fight with Verstappen, with Leclerc? He's in the hunt. He looks like he's racing Perez at the moment, but remember what Jolien just told you. This part of the lap, once you go through turn 13, 14 and 15, has been Alonso territory all weekend long. He takes that wide line in there. He makes a bit of a correction as he's desperately trying to wring the most from the Aston Martin. Given the opportunity he's got, where does Alonso go? He goes ahead of Sainz and he goes into P4.
Well, he's fighting the car a little bit too much, I think, through the final corner there. Oversteering his way to the curb, maybe just losing a bit of drive. Still, he's got himself ahead of Sainz, but Sainz will go again.
Hulkenberg gets ahead of Stroll, and the Mercedes are about 0.4 of a second off the pace when they went through the second sectors. We're on board, first of all, with George Russell, one-time Grand Prix winner, one-time pole position holder. Can he get ahead of Alonso? He can't. What about his teammate? So Lewis Hamilton looking to try and get ahead. No, he can't. And he's only in 7th place as Hulkenberg's time is deleted and he falls to the back of the pack.
So that'll be Hulkenberg in 10th then for everything he's done to get that Haas up into the top 10. That is where he'll start. And Leclerc's done. Leclerc jumps out. Verstappen's on an outlap. Perez is on an outlap. Sainz is on an outlap. And Leclerc is not. Have they got a problem then down at Ferrari? Couldn't send the car out again for a final hurrah.
He's watching with us as he goes straight to the timing page and he hopes that he can cling on to a front row. It would be a 25th front row in Formula One. Verstappen's only a 10th ahead, but his rivals are fading. And has he done enough to take a 21st pole position and go ahead of Valtteri Bottas and Damon Hill in the record books?
Look how close it is from Alonso's got himself to 4th. 4 thousandths ahead of Russell. Sainz is on an outlap and will try and improve from where he is, but he's just a couple of hundredths down on Alonso. And then there's Hamilton. They're all within half a tenth. Hamilton will currently start 7th and will surely start 7th unless Ocon can beat him. and Alonso's going to be on the second row. A huge difference in position for just half a tenth of lap time there.
That is outrageous. Alonso, Russell, Sainz and Hamilton separated by hardly anything. And the quality of the drivers involved as well. We have been treated to a spectacle today.
Fernando's going to have some fun from there on the grid, I think, tomorrow. He's going to be really, really excited. Pulls it in, and he's done in the Aston Martin. So it's just the 2 Red Bulls out there and Carlos Sainz. Esteban Ocon launching into a flying lap as well in the Alpine, but we don't expect him to be charging too far up the order. So it's Red Bull, and Ferrari. Leclerc, 1/10 away. He felt like he was the man to take this to Verstappen, but for whatever reason, he's not out there.
Now, is Max Verstappen going to throw down a gauntlet here and say, oh, you thought it was a 10th, did you? He's attacking the racetrack once again, 3.3 miles ahead of him. And he's got Perez, who's still in the mix as well. Red Bull will want to lock out that front row. Charles Leclerc is done. Max Verstappen knows that Sergio Perez is capable of improving by 0.2 of a second. Perez has had 2 podiums around this circuit, including a victory. In fact, this is the only track in Formula One where Perez has won, where Verstappen hasn't.
And Max doesn't improve the first sector. Sergio Perez now is about to come through, and he has improved. 1,000th between them in the first sector. And remember, Carlos Sainz's lap, he made a bit of a mistake in the middle sector, so there might be something more for Sainz to add.
Sainz is chasing a 4th career pole position, and he's in the benchmark. You've got to take a step forward. You've got to get across the line with the track at its best, and that is right here, right now. Lance Stroll's session is done. He's in 8th position, and Hamilton currently in 7th. Sainz trying to improve from 6th. It's middle sector time for Max Verstappen. This is where he's been mighty. He's improving by a 10th. What can Sergio Perez do? Can Perez find just a 2nd career pole position? He's in the fight here. It's still not over.
And Sainz is going quickly behind as well. Sainz is improving through the middle sector. We'll see what he can do there now. He's so close. 3 of them for it.
What a glorious qualifying hour, coming to a close. First over the line, the world champion, Max Verstappen improves. Can his teammate get close? Perez to the line. Perez looking for something inspirational. He's improved to the front row, but he wasn't close enough. And now it's all down to Carlos Sainz to break the Red Bull domination at the start of the year. And he's improved, but it's only to 4th place to get past his countrymen. And it's a Red Bull 1-2 after the qualifying hour. Charles Leclerc outqualifies his teammate. Alonso is 0.6 of a second away in 5th. Russell outqualifies Hamilton at the first opportunity. Stroll did well to make Q3. Ocon and Hülkenberg 9th and 10th. And after all the speculation, it is Max Verstappen who takes his 2nd pole around this circuit and will start the season. Max Verstappen.
Right, and there you have it. So the Red Bulls lock out the front row, and the fight that we were all, I think, hoping to see in that last last lap in Q3 would have been Leclerc against Verstappen. And for some reason, they decided not to send Leclerc out. We'll have to wait and see what that was all about. Perhaps there was an issue with the Ferrari there. Not entirely sure yet. Still waiting on confirmation of that. But nevertheless, it was an interesting qualifying. So the top 10 as it stands, then let's bring up the timesheet, the classified / unclassified, barring any penalties, etc. The provisional grid looks like this: Verstappen first, Perez second, Leclerc third, and Sainz fourth. So a front row lockout and a second row lockout by first Red Bull and then Ferrari. Alonso 5th, Russell 6th, out-qualifying Lewis Hamilton in 7th, Lance Stroll 8th, Ocon 9th, and Hülkenberg in the Haas up into 10th. That is your top 10 for tomorrow's Grand Prix, barring any mishaps, etc. A couple of comments. Ved's ball. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what you mean on that, but I'm sure. Yeah. What happened with Gasly? Gasly, there was an issue in literally right at the start of Q1. Gasly had an incident and was essentially out of the qualifying quite early on in that. Actually had a red flag at the very start of Q1. So we are a little bit delayed with the finish of the session. So that is that. It is all set up for tomorrow. We'll have to wait now and see how the race will develop tomorrow. It's not yes, it's a Red Bull lockout. However, if you're not a Red Bull fan, have hope, because the Red Bull race pace certainly didn't look as quick as their qualifying pace. We always knew over a single lap that Red Bull were going to be quick, but for example, the likes of Alonso looked very quick on the actual race pace itself, with a bit more fueling, etc. And so did the Mercedes. So, and it's tight. 129.7, but obviously Verstappen had the extra run. Russell and Hamilton only, for example, and Alonso all only ran one lap in qualifying. Verstappen and Perez ran two. Leclerc only ran one lap in qualifying as well. So with evolution of track, etc., it's probably not a great deal of in a qualifying that's quite tight. So we'll have to see how that progresses tomorrow. So I will be back with live timing, live commentary for the race tomorrow. The race is at I think 2 p.m. UK time. So join us for that. I hope to see a few of you there. Don't forget, on your way out, if you can smash that like button, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to let us know, so that you'll get a notification when we go live. I'll also be doing a post-race analysis after the race tomorrow as well. But yeah, interesting qualifying, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Whatever it is, wherever you are, whatever you're doing for the rest of the weekend, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you all again soon.